Hello, my name is Mike Nelson. I am the Assistant Emergency Coordinator for Denton County ARES. That is the Amateur Radio Emergency Service. I want to welcome you to the first of hopefully it's going to be a series of training videos posted on YouTube for the benefit of our ARES members in Denton County, as well as anyone else who could benefit from this and the other training that we're going to start providing to you. The training today is going to be on winter preparedness. This is a topic that we did give on the repeater this past month in our monthly training net on the air. And I've also given a version of it to our CERT training, to our CERT group. But we thought this would be a good idea to just provide out on YouTube and for anyone else to listen to, and hopefully somebody else can learn from it, or if you were not able to make the training, you can get the training here. Like I said, we're going to talk about winter preparedness. This training will cover you both while deployed on an ARES activation, as well as just for you and your family and your normal activities during the winter months. We will discuss and describe the injuries that can occur in cold weather, along with some treatments. And then you'll also receive some hints and ideas for preparing your cars, homes, and yourselves for the cold weather. All in all, like I said, we're going to talk about the effects of cold weather on your body. Just what kind of effects, negative effects, can cold weather and have on your body, along with the injuries and the first aid for each. We're going to talk about how to prepare your home, your car, and yourselves for the winter months. And then some safety hints for both should a winter storm or a cold event occur, and then some last cautions on carbon monoxide poisoning. First off, let's get started and talk about just how the cold affects your body. You can lose heat in your body through several ways. Evaporation of water from your skin if it's wet. Think about sweating if you've been outside working or exerting yourself, either through, we don't get a lot of snow here in North Texas, but should you just be working outside, or we do get a little bit of snow that you have to shovel, or just should we get an ARES activation and you're working outside. Exerting, sweating. If your clothing gets wet, you can lose some of your body heat through evaporation during intense exercise or activities. The body can lose up to 30% of its heat through sweating. Also, radiation is another form of heat loss from the body. Similar to the way heat leaves from a wood stove, or if you're next to a hot surface, you can feel the heat coming off of it. That's radiation heat transfer. This is the normal process of heat moving away from the body, and usually occurs in air temperatures below 68 degrees Fahrenheit. The body can lose 40% of its heat through radiation. Conduction is another form of heat transfer. Think about sleeping on a cold ground or sitting on a cold surface. The heat is lost in air temperatures lower than 68 degrees Fahrenheit, and the body can lose 2 to 3% of its heat through conduction. However, water causes more heat loss from the body than air does, so heat can be lost from the body very quickly when it's placed in cold water. So that's another form of conduction, is if you're immersed in cold water. Lastly, we'll talk about convection. Convection is similar to sitting in front of a fan or having the wind blowing on you. The body can lose 27% of its heat through convection. Pay attention to the wind chill if you're going to be outside in the wintertime when the wind is strong. The temperature will seem colder than the actual air temperature, and you can lose more of your body heat when the wind is blowing than when it's calm. I'm sure a lot of us have seen these wind chill charts. Pay attention to them. That's what we're talking about here. Next thing I'm going to talk about here is just what factors increase your risk of injury. External factors. Start by temperature. We all know that if it's colder outside, hypothermia can develop. We can develop hypothermia quickly when temperatures are below freezing. Frostbite can develop at freezing temperatures. Also, people who live in poorly heated homes can gradually develop hypothermia at temperatures of 60 degrees Fahrenheit or less. Wet conditions. Wet conditions from rain or being in water or just sweating outside when it's cold. Water on the skin causes you to feel cool and to lose heat. Wet skin freezes more quickly than dry skin. Wet feet and hands can be damaged even temperatures above freezing if they are constantly wet. Finally, wind can enhance or increase your risk of injury in cool weather. As said before, wind makes the outside temperature feel colder. Heat loss can increase in windy weather. Think about that convection that we talked about. So now we're going to talk about some of the cold weather injuries that we need to look out for. These are hypothermia, frost nip, and frostbite. First, we're going to talk about hypothermia. Hypothermia occurs when the body gets cold and loses heat faster than the body can make it. That's the key. You're losing heat faster than your body can make it up. This is an emergency condition that can quickly lead to unconsciousness and death. It can occur at temperatures of 50 degrees or higher when you're wet or in windy weather, or even if you're in 60 degree, 70 degree Fahrenheit water. So remember, being immersed in water, 20, 30 degrees below your body temperature, you're going to be losing heat and you can go into hypothermia. Hypothermia can range from mild to moderate or severe. Mild hypothermia is when temperatures are between 90 to 95 degrees. That's your body temperature, 90 to 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Moderate to severe hypothermia kicks in when your body temperature falls below 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Early symptoms of hypothermia would include shivering, cold, pale, or blue-gray skin, lack of interest or concern, apathy, poor judgment, mild unsteadiness in balance or walking, slurred speech, numb hands or fingers, and difficulty performing tasks. You may have experienced some of these symptoms yourself when you've been out in the cold or when you're cold and wet. Later symptoms of hypothermia would include the trunk of the body being cold to the touch. Your muscles become stiff. Your pulse slows. Breathing is slower and is shallower. You get weaker and you're sleepy. Confusion sets in even more. Loss of consciousness. Shivering may eventually stop if the body temperature drops below some 90 degrees Fahrenheit. It's very important to get treatment for hypothermia quickly. Often a hiker or skier, or also just think about an ARES member working outside in the cold in the winter. Body temperature will drop really low before others may notice that there's something wrong. Look out for each other. Please look out for each other. If somebody begins to shiver violently, stumble, or can't respond to questions, suspect hypothermia and go and start actions to get them out of the cold environment and to warm them up. Next, we're going to talk about frost nip. You may have heard about frostbite. Frost nip is a little bit less severe. It is a superficial, non-freezing, that's the important distinction, non-freezing cold injury due to vasoconstriction. That is to say that the blood vessels constrict, reducing blood flow to the area. The skin will be pale, may have paresthesia or numbness. Think about pins and needles. It's common on exposed skin, including cheeks, ears, and nose. The skin is still pliable. This is a major difference between frost nip and frostbite. I'm sure most of us have experienced this before to some extent when we've been out in the cold. Next, if we move to frostbite. Frostbite occurs when body tissue freezes. Again, that's a distinction between frost nip and frostbite. In frostbite, the body tissue is freezing. It usually occurs first in the extremities like your feet, hands, nose, ears, fingers, and toes. Symptoms include numbness and discoloration of the affected body part. If we catch it early, frostbite may be treated. But if deep tissue freezes and dies, then amputation may be necessary. So again, this is very, very serious. It will lead to amputation or even death. Symptoms of frostbite. In the early stages, the skin is going to turn pale yellow or white. It may itch, sting, burn, or feel like pins and needles. In the intermediate stage of frostbite, the skin is starting to become hard, look shiny or waxy. When the skin thaws, it can blister and become filled with fluid or blood. In the later stage of frostbite, the skin becomes very hard and cold to the touch. Again, it's freezing, it's frozen. The skin darkens quickly, may look blue or later turn black. Here, now we're going to take a look at some photographs of some various stages of frostbite, both frost nip and frostbite. I will warn you that a couple of the photos are going to be, especially the one of the severe frostbite, is pretty graphic. Again, frost nip is a mild form of frostbite. It irritates the skin. You're going to look for redness and a cold feeling followed by numbness. The frost nip does not permanently damage the skin. Superficial frostbite, as we said, this is where we're in an intermediate stage of frostbite. The skin is becoming hard, looks shiny or waxy. When the skin thaws and blisters, it can become filled with fluid or blood. In the advanced phase of frostbite, skin becomes very hard and cold to the touch. It can darken and may look blue or even turn black. Again, this is when we look at amputation. So, how are we going to treat cold injuries? Let's talk now about first aid for cold-related injuries. Starting with hypothermia. For mild hypothermia, we need to seek treatment both for any stage of hypothermia, but that medical treatment kind of depends on the severity of the hypothermia. For mild hypothermia, this includes getting out of the cold or wet environment, getting some warm blankets or heaters in place, maybe some hot water bottles. We need to warm the person up, get them out of the cold environment and warm them up. Kind of remember those signs and symptoms of hypothermia. In the moderate to severe hypothermia, this generally needs to be treated in the hospital. Doctors can give warmed intravenous fluids and warm, moist oxygen, as well as some other treatments to warm the core body temperature. Here, they are warming from the inside as well as from the outside. So yes, not just wrapped in a blanket, but now that we get warm fluids and warm oxygen into the body, we can warm their core as well. For frost nip, this can generally be treated at home. If you think about it, you may have experienced frost nip in the past. If you do think you have frost nip, go and get out of the cold as soon as you can. If your clothes are wet, make sure you change into dry clothing. You may immerse the area in warm water. Notice I said warm, not hot. I'm talking 100 to 105 degree Fahrenheit, tepid water, to thaw the tissue out a little bit. Again, frost nip, we're not frozen tissue, but it's getting close. Do not use hotter water than this because you may actually burn your skin if you do. If you don't have any warm water available, use your own body heat. For instance, you can tuck your hands in underneath your armpit or cover your nose, ears, or face with your dry hands. For frostbite, this is where we need to seek care promptly. We need to see a doctor or go to a hospital or emergency room. Frostbite is not something to mess around with. This is serious. First, we need to restore warmth until you can see a doctor. How do we do this? Well, we can get the person to a warm place and remove any wet clothing. Unless absolutely necessary, the person should not be walking on any frostbitten toes or feet. Do not rewarm the skin until you can keep it warm. We want to avoid the tissue freezing, thawing, and then refreezing. It can cause even more damage. We want to gently warm the area in warm water, again, not hot, or with wet heat. Think about damp, warm cloths, until the skin appears red and warm. If you don't have any warm water nearby, you can try breathing on the area through cupped hands or hold it next to your body. Use your body heat to warm the affected area. Do not use direct heat from heating pads, radiators, or fires. Again, we don't want to damage the skin through too much heat too fast or cause any shock. Do not rub or massage the skin or break blisters. If you need to bandage the area, think about fingers or toes. We want to loosely apply dry, sterile dressings. Put that gauze or clean cotton balls between fingers or toes to keep them separated. Follow up at the hospital. When the person does get to the hospital, the doctors are going to rewarm the area. They may administer medication for pain or intravenous fluids if the person is dehydrated. The doctor may also give a tetanus vaccine. The person may be hospitalized for a few days, and in severe cases may require amputation of the frostbitten area to avoid gangrene. Again, it's a very, very serious situation.